Look, there you are again. Now I got dog fur all over me. And he almost unplugged the camera. Hey, welcome back to Tripod's Garage. Today we're doing 5 upgrades for 50 bucks. Yes, 5 upgrades for $50. And yeah, I had to consult with the boss, which is the wife, on what my budget for this video was. So she said $50. So I made it work. And ever since my last upgrade video, which is the Bigtreetech board upgrade, I've been running this Ender 5 Plus non-stop for practically 5 weeks. And what have I been doing? I've been printing out air savers. You've probably seen these all over the place. Well, this is my third batch of them. I've done about 1,400 of them. Along that, I've done these Montana masks. I've done about 30 of these. So yeah, and you tend to realize what some of the problems are on this printer just in a stock mode here, and what you can actually improve upon and maybe get some more extended life out of certain components. So let's go on to the workbench and see what we have and start our upgrade process. So what are our 5 upgrades for $50? Let's start from over here and work our way around. Well, first off, we have a hotbed, and the wires that are hanging from the hotbed have no strain relief but a piece of tape. So I found this file on Thingiverse to create a strain relief, and I bought these 2 screws and a couple nuts, and I think this comes out to about $2 worth of materials altogether, including the plastic. So the PLA. This is a PLA Plus. So this was printed on my Ender 5 Plus with the new upgrade. I think it's printing rather well. Thank you. Next, we are going to do an all-metal extruder. Yeah, this is a pretty popular upgrade for the Ender 5 Plus. It feels like they just rated a parts bin for the extruder. It's got some weird plastic thing that you have no grip onto with your pointer finger. It's got 2 holes that looks like it's meant for some type of tube to come out. So we are going to just replace that as well. I think it's going to add some life to it. Next, that's another popular upgrade. It's been done on a couple YouTube channels already, but yes, we're going to replace the regular PTFE tube with a Capricorn tube. And we're going to use these cutters. We want to make sure this cuts nice and square. That you know, I'll probably wind up cutting this end. It looks kind of iffy. You know what? I'm going to square off both ends. That is definitely on a angle. So you know, this has a safety. So you could just go ahead and, yes, go ahead and chop that off. Chopping off parts. So between the 2 of these were $20, and they came with some fittings as well. So, and then here, I'm having some issues with my bed, and when I'm printing at higher speed, it feels like those, actually it is happening, is that the leveling nuts on the bottom are backing off. So if I've been printing at 100 speed for a little bit now, actually for 4 weeks straight, and it seems like those springs are just not stiff enough. What these are silicone standoffs. These are going to replace the springs, and you know, when you squish them down, it's going to provide a little bit more tension on that hotbed. And this was $13. Next, we are going to replace the filament roll. So we're going to replace the filament spool with one that's I printed off of Thingiverse. This is so we can actually have less friction. And who doesn't like the name of these ball bearings? These are iHomey bearings. So hey, it's just worth it to buy it for the name, right? You can actually save a little bit more money. I bought this for $6. It has 10 in it. You can actually find it for cheaper. So for only 2. This was the fastest shipping for this, so I decided to go with the 10 bearing kit, and maybe I could use it for something else. And all of this is just at $50 through Amazon. Nothing overseas or anything. So yeah, I mean, let's get going and start doing some of the upgrades. I'm going to remove that little blue retaining clip, and now I'm going to just also remove the whole fitting itself. Since I'm replacing the wooden tube, I'm going to just leave this fitting on, just make it a little bit easier. Also, I'm going to remove the whole extruder from the extrusion, it'll just be a little bit easier for me. Okay, I really don't understand. Maybe there was some type of tube that was supposed to go through here, but to grip it, it just really sucks. And I would love to know which Creality parts bin this came from. It's time to replace it with aluminum. Look at that. You could easily put your finger on it. It's not going to break. Let's go ahead and tear this apart and assemble the new metal one. This is where you're going to want to adjust the gear height to the bearing. You want to make sure that it's nice and centered, so you may have to move this up or down a little bit, and make sure that you tighten both of these set screws, and one will be at the flat side and one will be on the curved side. And that's basically it. Now we have assembled the whole extruder. And it's going to be a lot easier now to squeeze and replace the filament. Now we're going to go ahead and attach it back to the extrusion. Make sure we line up our T-nuts and screw it in place. And then we'll be done mounting the extruder. Now we're going to replace the PTFE Bowden tube with the Capricorn tube. I prefer taking off the two bolts that are holding up on the flange shroud and the BL Touch. The reason is that you're going to want to hold the heat block with maybe a pair of pliers or something to prevent it from twisting. Because when we try to remove the fitting connector for the Bowden tube, it's going to take a little bit of force to unscrew it. Right now I'm just removing the silicone sock, and then in a few seconds I'm going to also remove the retaining clip for the Bowden tube, the blue little clip right there on the top. Sorry, I had to get my camera to focus there. So I've adjusted my crescent wrench to go around the heat block on the bottom. Now I'm taking my Creality wrench to the fitting on the top, putting equal pressure on both. These fittings are on pretty tight, so it's be my suggestion to follow this process and just take off the fan cover and just do it the right way. After removing the fitting, man, this tube did not want to come out. I must have called this thing every name in the book. And finally, after some twisting, pulling, and screaming, popped out. Oh, wow. And boy, does this look nasty. Ugh. Well, good thing it's being replaced right now. Just verifying the length, and I'm going to cut it same length as the old tube. I'm going to just trim it a little bit long because I'm going to come back and I'm going to cut it a lot more square on the next cut. These are very sharp, so please make sure that you be careful not to cut off any limbs or fingers or appendages or something. So, and right there, I just made sure that I could get it as straight as can be, and doing the same for the other end. As I twisted the heck out of this tube by cutting it where I didn't twist it, so I can now remove the fitting nice and easily and put it on the new tube. Now we're going to insert the fitting into the hot end here. We want to just go ahead and screw it in here. We're going to give it a little bit of a turn, tighten it, and then we're going to back it off about 3/4 of a turn. And then after we do that, we're going to insert the Capricorn tubing. While pushing it down, we're going to go ahead and tighten that fitting in. And this will ensure that we are as tight as we can be with the tubing to the heat block. Don't forget your little blue retaining clip. Pop that in. Now we're just going to put the 2 screws back and reconnect the BL Touch. On the other end, we're just going to connect the tube to the extruder, and don't forget your little fancy blue retaining clip for this as well, so it helps prevent it from backing out. And don't forget to reconnect your extruder and your filament runout sensors. Now we're going to replace the springs with some silicone standoffs. Let's remove these leveling nuts. Now, all we're going to do is replace the springs with the silicone standoffs. Pretty easy process. And I think the only hard part is trying to find the hole for the screw to go back into. But we're going to do this for all 4 corners. Now we're just going to put the leveling nuts back on. When we tighten this down, we want do it maybe around halfway. This is going to put a lot of pressure on these corners, and you want to make sure that it does not bend the aluminum heat bed. Of course, after you're done with this, you're going to want to re-level your bed and definitely redo your Z offset, and you want to get some good squish on these. Again, don't over tighten them. And the next upgrade is the filament spool holder. Wow, would you look at that? Nice and scratched up. Just a little bit of friction going on here. Yeah, I think we could just easily solve this by putting on a holder that will spin nice and freely, using, of course, my iHomey bearings. Yep. I couldn't recommend these more. So let's get this assembled and watch how nice and freely this spool will now spin. The final part is the strain relief part. This just slides in and then over your linear bearing, and you just want to make this snug. Don't over tighten it, and you can actually see what it does. So we're going to just insert the screws with the nuts, and just again, just snug. You definitely don't want to over tighten. Now it's time to kick off some test prints to make sure I didn't screw something up. Here's a benchy right after the Bigtreetech upgrade. Really nice benchy. It's got some stringing going on inside. A little bit of a curve there from bed adhesion, but overall, very solid. Looks really, really good. So now let's look at the benchy that I just printed after my upgrades. It's still really good. Oop. There we go. I mean, this is another solid benchy. I mean, look at these lines. I mean, it's yeah, you got a little bit of globs here from, and it's in both. So very little stringing now. That was definitely a problem before, but I'm overall pretty impressed with it. And here's again the Bigtreetech, and here it is the next upgrade right here. I really can't complain. This printer is doing very good. I was able to get a better squish from my first layer. As you can see, you can't even see the lines, but it leaves a little bit of an edge, squishing it like that. So, yep, I think this was pretty good. So 5 upgrades, $50. Actually, it was a little bit less than $50 because I spent a little bit more to get the 10-pack bearings, which had faster shipping, and it said iHomey on it. Well, I figured I would use the 8 bearings on another project. So let's start with what those bearings were used for. What's the spool holder, right? My spool holder started looking like that just after a few rolls. Okay, you got a lot of drag and friction on there. I would be sitting over here working on the computer, and I would just hear that thing just scratching. So this is just relieving the stress on there and just making it move freely. And for basically $3 between the filaments and the bearings, I think it's very good money well spent. Okay, now we look at the extruder. Really, what parts bin did Creality get that darn thing from? Because it certainly doesn't look like it belongs on there. You're expected to push your thumb on that thing. Look, I still have the circle on it. That thing looked like a tube should go through it where your thumb goes. Very uncomfortable, and that thing looked like it was going to break from the very beginning. I was going to replace that regardless. This thing, all metal, Creality, extruder, $13. I could have just stopped right there and I would have been happy. But now we're going to the Capricorn tube and the cutter. Between the two, it's $20. And you really need that cutter. Don't use snips or a knife. You don't want it to squeeze or anything. You want a nice, clean, straight cut. And that actually was the most difficult time for me, was getting the stock tube out of there. Because it just did not want to budge. I heated up that hot end and it still just did not want to come out. So finally, after some twisting and didn't want to pull on too hard, it finally broke free. And then I put the Capricorn tubing in, buttoned everything up, and all nice and tight. And when I loaded that filament going through that Capricorn, you could actually feel the difference. So if you could actually feel the difference just by loading the filament, imagine what it's going to do to relieve the stress on your other parts that are putting that filament onto your bed. So now we're talking about the bed itself. Replacing the springs with 4 silicone standoffs. This is a tough pill to swallow at $13. I've actually been running those silicone standoffs for 2 weeks, and I had not needed to adjust the level of my bed, not even once. Before, the 2 weeks prior, printing at a higher speed, I would have to adjust my bed either every print or every other print. So to me, it's money well spent, and that's at higher speeds. When I was printing at lower speeds at 50 or 60, it was fine. But this thing would jostle around printing those air savers, and you could actually see it moving and shifting. So yeah, and that's most likely where these things were loosening up. Now, solid. Last upgrade, just printing and filament, right? So just energy and filament. Yeah, not too bad. Sorry, Bear wants to go inside. That is your strain relief for the wires to your hotbed. It's really disheartening when you spend north of $500 on a printer and all they can do is put a piece of darn tape to hold the wires to your hotbed. There's honestly no excuse for that. Honestly, you're using the solder and the tape that hold it in place. It's not like this bed isn't moving. If it wasn't moving, this could be somewhat acceptable, but look at the volume. This thing is going up and down. It's always under strain, especially if you're only going to this part. If you're not having press that go all the way down, it's not like it's automatically parks down here. So yeah, printing that out, big deal. Honestly, that should be one of your first upgrades. And it has a design where it has 2 holes on both sides where you could send tie wraps through. I couldn't get to go through, so if you look at the picture, I did just put a big beefy tie wrap behind there, so it doesn't, the wire no longer shifts up and down or even side to side. It just stays in place. So that's it. You know what? The prints look great, as you can see right here. There's really nothing for me to chase. If there's any upgrades that you'd like to see me do within reason, please comment below. I'm not afraid of a challenge. So, and you know what? I would really appreciate it if you like and subscribe. That would be great. And we'll catch you the next time on Tripod's Garage. Stay safe out there. Bear wants to go inside. There he is, right there. So I'm going inside too. Have a good one, guys and girls.